everyone, welcome to the QuesterMage and welcome to today's video about the Sonic Gems collection for the PlayStation 2, but more specifically about a game that this collection has within it, which is Sonic the Fighters. In today's video I want to talk about what I dislike, what I like about the game, what I change, and my overall thoughts on this arcade game which is available on the PlayStation 2. So please sit back, relax, click like, subscribe, and hopefully enjoy. Here we go. Before I go on with the video, let me say I've been trying to get this video out for over a week. I have been quite sick and hopefully my voice doesn't sound terrible. If it does, you now know why. So Sonic the Fighters, or as in the EU they know it, Sonic Championship. A Sonic fighting game. Can you believe it? This game was available in the arcade, and as I said earlier, it is also available in the Sonic Gems collection for the PlayStation 2. Now I am capturing all this footage on an original PlayStation 2 using a LevelHike HDMI adapter. When you buy this game, the game tells you that it includes 9 games, which is 3 must-have hits and 6 bonus games, but actually, this game includes 11. So what games does it actually include? Well, here we are in the games list, and as you can see on the left-hand side, we have some abbreviations, which is Arcade Game, Mega CD, Sega Saturn, Game Gear, and later on we'll see Mega Drive as well. So starting from the top, we have the marquee game, which is Sonic the Fighters, which is the game that got me to buy this collection in the first place. I really wanted to play this game. But the other games that are included are Sonic CD, Sonic R, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Sonic Spinball, Sonic the Hedgehog Triple Trouble, Sonic Drift Racing, Tails' Sky Patrol, Tails Adventures, and now on this version, which is the EU version of the game, we have 2 games that can be unlocked. If you do have the Japanese version, fortunately for you, there are more games to be unlocked, but again, today's version is about the EU version of Sonic Gems collection, which is the one I own. So what are these 2 games that are unlockable? The first one is Vector Man, and the second one is Vector Man 2. Which leads us to the next question, how do you unlock them? To unlock Vector Man 1, you have to just have this game playing for 5 hours or more, or, as I done, you can buy Sonic Mega Collection. And if you have a save that's been saved to your memory card, then it unlocks this game automatically. Vector Man 2 is a little bit more difficult as you have to play the Sonic Gems collection for 7 hours or more, which is what I'm trying to do, and that's why it's still question marked there. So those are the games that we're going to find in the Sonic Gems collection, but again, today's video is about Sonic the Fighters, so let's get into this game and see what it looks like. So here we are in the main menu, let's go right through there and take a look at what options this game gives us access to from the get-go, as this is, again, a console version of an arcade game. So the main menu here shows us arcade mode, versus mode, options, and return. We're going to go straight to the options menu like I usually do for these videos, and let's see what type of options this game actually has. So we start off with game settings, control, sound, screen, system, records, credits, and exit. Let's go into the game settings and see what settings we actually have. So a lot like some of the other collections, we have what seems to be a good array of options here. Starting off with arcade, we have enemy rank, where we can change it from easy, normal, hard, and hardest. Next we have the match count, we can change it from 2, 3, 4, and 5. Round time, we can change that from 10 to 99 seconds. And then the energy max, which can be normal, hard, or hardest. We have similar stuff there for versus mode, which we're going to skip through. And then we have barrier that we can change from the value of 1 to the value of 10. Barrier reset can be on or off. Automatic, I have no idea what this does, but it can be on or off. Hyper mode, on or off. Damage can be low or high, and then return to default settings. So I think that's actually a pretty good amount of settings. So let's go to control. In here we have the default type A, type B, and it seems like we have the ability to change all the buttons. That's great. So if you do have access to play these games with an arcade stick, you can change the buttons to suit your gameplay style. Fantastic. I love that sort of stuff. So in the sounds menu, we have stereo and mono, which is quite normal for the time to have these options. We have the sound effects volume, we have sound effect test, music volume, and we have music test, which goes from number 1 to track 24. So 24 songs that we can test out here or listen to. Next will be screen options. So we have screen type A, B, and C. Luckily, it actually gives you an example of what each one does. We can also adjust the position, as you can see here, the X or the Y, so we can go up or down, left or right, which is fantastic. I also like it when games have this function. Especially with the LevelHike here, the LevelHike has given me a little bit of problems on a European PlayStation 2, as it does not render the image as it should, as it's running at 50 Hz, and the European PlayStation 2 runs at a different resolution. So good feature to have here. Unfortunately, it doesn't fix what I need it to fix, but good to have there nonetheless. In the system, we have save and load system settings, and then we have records and credits. So let's exit out of the options, go into the arcade mode and see what this game has to offer in terms of actual gameplay. Can't wait to see what it actually looks like. So here we are in the character select. We start off with Sonic the Hedgehog in 3D, which is great. And then we have Tails, Fang, Bean, Bark, Espio, Amy, and Knuckles. Those are the 8 characters. Apparently there's another one, but I'll get to that a little bit later. So let's talk about some of the things that I disliked about this game while the gameplay is running in the background. So the first thing that I'd have to say about this game that really came to mind is the game really does allow you to button mash to win. Especially at the beginning of the game, you can just simultaneously press that punch or kick button and you will find yourself winning. Not the best control scheme for a fighting game, but we do have to bear in mind that this is an arcade game. I don't think this game was ever meant for the fighting game community at large. This was supposed to be a game that would allow you to have fun playing a fighting game, and it tends to skew towards the easy level of gameplay. Next would be the difficulty curve isn't quite right in normal mode. As I said, the game is pretty easy at the beginning, but towards the end, the game really spikes in difficulty, which is pretty weird to me. I think this game is supposed to be for an audience that likes Sonic and wants to play a Sonic game in a fighting environment. But the difficulty curve can be off-putting later on if you are a casual fighting game fan. So this is something that I dislike. I think that it should have progressively amped up as opposed to all of a sudden from round to round, you go from easy to difficult. Next is one of my biggest problems with this game, which is you don't actually unlock anything for finishing the arcade mode. There are unlocks in this whole collection, which are usually time-based, like I was saying with Vector Man 1, Vector Man 2. We also have in the game a gallery full of pictures, which is great. You can unlock that for playing the game for a long period of time. And you also have music you can unlock. But in the game itself, Sonic the Fighters, the game does not reward you for finishing the arcade mode. I understand that finishing the arcade mode itself is an accomplishment, and for me it is, but it would be nice to receive a reward, therefore making you want to play the game again. Lastly, in the dislikes would be a very little story in this game. Just fight and try to win. It's not that I was expecting a massive overarching story in this game, but I would expect there to be an introduction as to why this fighting tournament is taking place as you play the game, introduce the bosses that you have, what is the motivation to get to the end, what is the motivation to defeat those enemies, and once you get to the end, see a final cutscene that would hopefully tie the story together neatly. Unfortunately, that is not here. You get a small cutscene at the end of the game, and that's it. But you don't really get a story structure as to why Sonic or any of the other characters are fighting through this tournament, which is a shame. I think the game would have benefited much more if it would have had at least a basic story arc. Now moving on to the things that I liked about the game. Firstly, I love the fact that Sonic has his own fighting game. I know he's been in other fighting games like Super Smash Bros. And now Super Smash Bros. Ultimate being the most recent one, but having the Sonic series exist in a fighting game, to me, it is really novel and it is pretty fun. I really like the fact that this even exists. The music you hear in the game is really good. I really like it. I think it keeps the pace going. It keeps it high tempo as you are playing the game. The sounds are really good as well. You hear a lot of ring sounds and a lot of sounds from the Sonic series, which is really good, really inviting if you are a Sonic fan. The graphics are what really comes across to me when I'm thinking about this game and what I like about it. They have big characters on screen, which are easy to see, and it relays a lot of that Sonic charm. As you can see here in the gameplay, it just looks really good. And it's a game that, if I see it, I know exactly what it is, which is a good thing. It is a 3D fighter, and I think it does a very good job of taking Sonic, putting him into 3D in a fighting game environment. So graphics for me, definitely a thumbs up. Next would be a good roster with known and lesser known characters, at least for me. I really like Sonic games, I've played them majority of my life, but I don't know much about the story of Sonic except for the cartoon series and the games that I have played. But here there are characters that I literally have no idea who they are. Bean, for instance. Who's Bean? I don't know. But it's good to have these characters in the game. Would have been nice to have little biographies or something explaining who the character is, why they're in the game, where they first appeared in the series. That would have been nice, but overall, good to have a good selection. Next would be a good array of options. I've been through the options menu already in this video, and I think this is really good. It's definitely a thumbs up to the developers of the game to allow us to have these settings available. I don't know if they were available in the arcade, I doubt it, but if they were, great. If they weren't, fantastic that we get them in this collection. And lastly, the things that I liked would be in the end credits. When you finish the game, I'm not going to show any spoilers, but when you finish the game, you actually see little snippets of the end of each fight. as you are seeing here on screen. I thought this was a very, very welcome and clever thing to do for the credits. So the game obviously records the last few seconds of every round and then adds them all together here in a form of collage for the credits, which is fantastic. I really like this and I think more games should do this. So that leaves us now in what would I change for Sonic the Fighters. The first thing would be more story. I do really think that the characters, one, need to have that biography that I was speaking about, but two, we need to have the story to explain why these characters are in this position to start with. Even if we don't have it for each individual character, it still would have been, I think, a good move to explain what the context of this game is, why the fighters are here, why the tournament is taking place, and what you win at the end of it. The next point would be, instead of a 3D arena which you can move around in, which this game does have, I think this game would have benefited if it would have been locked to a 2D perspective. So in essence, the characters are in 3D, the arena is in 3D, but the character movement is locked to a 2D plane. I think the game would have benefited from having this limitation imposed on it, as I didn't really find myself using the 3D environment that much. If you press the L2 button, you can move around this arena, but in a very limited way. I think they could have taken this out of the game, and the game would have benefited from just having that 2D perspective. This, coupled with slowing the game down slightly, I think would have made the game more tactical too. Next would be to try and stop players from winning by button mashing. A little more depth is definitely needed in this game. Slow down the gameplay like I was mentioning, make the characters feel heavier, and that would allow the player to use moves more for impact and not just bread and butter combos, which you are going to use again and again in this game. Bearing in mind, like I was mentioning earlier, this is not meant to be a King of Fighters style game or a Street Fighter game or a Mortal Kombat game in any which way, shape or form. It is meant to be an easier game, but a little bit of depth I think fits in all types of fighting games. Next would be unlockables are needed, definitely 100%. Apparently there are unlockable fighters like I was mentioning earlier, but I couldn't unlock them. I will speak about this more in my overall thoughts, but why don't we get unlockables like arenas, more characters, even Sonic games could be unlocked by beating the arcade mode, as this game is a part of an overall collection, but none of that is there. I would definitely want to change that to reward the player and get us to play the game again and again so that we can unlock more and more things. Doesn't have to be hundreds of unlockables, but some definitely would be welcome and is definitely something I would change. So those are things I would change within the game. So what are my overall thoughts on Sonic the Fighters or Sonic Championship? I do like this game, but as a fighting game, it leaves a little bit to be desired. The controls are responsive, nice graphics, the sound and music is memorable, and a decent amount of options. There is an arcade mode, which is to be expected as this is an arcade game, but when you port these games to a console, I'd want a little bit more from them. It's great that Sonic the Fighters is in this collection as it adds to the overall value. When you finish the game, it doesn't reward you or even hint at a reward being available if you play it again. I think most people will play this game once or twice, and then once they've finished the arcade mode, probably not play the game again for a while. Weirdly, there seem to be unlockables missing from the game. You should be able to play as Eggman, Metal Sonic, and Honey by pressing the start button on top of specific characters in the character select screen. I tried to do this several times and none of this worked, and I don't know why. I am still trying to unlock Super Sonic. As of making this video, I haven't been able to do so. Apparently, to unlock Super Sonic, as it says here on screen, you have to win every single round until you get to Metal Sonic, and in the second round with Metal Sonic, activate Hyper Mode, and apparently you change into Super Sonic. That hasn't happened to me once yet. Hopefully, I just haven't done this properly, but there is some weird wording here as well, as you can see here on screen. I might be wrong, and if I am, please let me know in the comments. This makes me think that if you win a match, which comprises of 2 rounds, and then you lose the next match, if you win the next one, then that counts as 2 wins and the game forgets your loss. Not sure if that's how that works. Hopefully I'll explain that properly. But again, haven't been able to unlock Super Sonic yet. Let me know if you can. The game itself, I think, is a good basis for a fighting game. It reminds me a lot of games like Fighting Vipers or Fighters Megamix on the Sega Saturn, but with bigger characters on screen. All in all, I still had fun playing the game, which is what I wanted. So I'm happy to have this in my collection. I've always wanted to play Sonic the Fighters, and here it is available on the PlayStation 2. It is a simpler fighting game, and it's not that bad. I don't know if it has the longevity it needs, but charm isn't always enough. But it does help. So a good, but not great game. So those are my overall thoughts on Sonic the Fighters or Sonic Championship for the PlayStation 2, which is part of the Sonic Gems collection. Have you played it? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Please let me know down in the comments, and let's have a discussion about it. To finish the video, let me say once again, I'm sorry if I sound weird. I am still feeling pretty sick, but hopefully you enjoyed today's video. And that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you very much again for watching. If you like what I do here, please click that like button down below. Helps out the channel a lot. And if you want to see more, please click that subscribe button, as that is the only way this channel can grow. Now, I hope you liked this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. And until then, thanks again.